What's going on, everybody? We are finally getting into the E24 maintenance stuff. As you can see here, got a big old box from FCP Euro, got a service manual here, and we are ready to dive into this thing. So this order got all messed up, and basically a lot of the stuff, since it's very unique parts for these early models, wasn't available, had to wait forever to get it. So the next day aired it to me, finally got here. So I went with a lot of stuff here. This, I don't know what that is. Intake, boot, cap, rotor, gaskets, fuel filters, trans, diff fluid, water pump, thermostat, valve cover gasket, oil pan gasket, oil pressure sensor, temp sensors, coolant hoses, spark plugs, oil change, obviously, random gaskets that I'm gonna have to sit here and remember which they go to, oil or air filter, pretty much all that good stuff. And today, like I said, I said I was going to do all the easier stuff first, but I've decided that what I want to do with this is hammer out this oil pan first, because this is going to be the most tedious part of all the restoration on this car, just because it's the biggest pain to kind of get to, and that's why I have this service manual out here. Previous owner gave me this. It's actually a 630, 633 service manual, so not like the 5 Series ones, and because of that, I got lots of good information here. Bad news, FCP Euro did not send me my oil pan gasket. That's the only thing that's missing, which is weird. But they did send me this is like an auto trans filter thingy. So I'm not sure if this was a mix-up and they sent like a pan thingy, whatever. But I'm gonna have to get that gasket again. And I didn't want to start, but I figured why not just start and kind of get ready for that gasket for whenever I get it. So this will take a couple days to do, but I'm not gonna rush this. And I want this done, and this might be its own video altogether, and then we can get into all the easier stuff that's, will be quick. Without further ado, let's jack this thing up, get under there, and see what we got to deal with. Alright, so we're under here. First step, remove the stabilizers. So, that includes the end links here, got to undo this nut, pull that out, and then I believe this just slots. It doesn't look like there's any way to actually bolt it in, or maybe there is, which I don't see how you could loosen that, so I'm gonna have to check that out. You can see, since the power washing, we got some leaks here, so it seems like the corners are leaky. Just the side that's tilted down with gravity, it makes sense. But then kind of gonna go from there, undo this power steering, take the belt off. I gotta replace it anyway, and go from there. And then kind of looking at this, I can understand why it says jack up the right motor mount arm, because these bolts are right on the subframe, whereas that side they're tilted up, so you don't need to do that. So I think it is the side right here that you got to tilt up, and then we'll kind of see how we can do it. So first things first, I'm going to pull off this stabilizer, aka sway bar. They call it a stabilizer. These have got to be single-handedly the most confusing sway bar end links ever in my life. It's basically a bolt all the way through with a nut, and in between then you have 4 sections of the rubber, because they're all split through the sway bar, which is really random. So I had to make sure I took note of how these come out, and I believe it's like that. So not too bad, but first time ever messing with them. That's a confusing system right there. So who at BMW is responsible for putting the sway bar nut or bolt right there, right in between the frame rail and the subframe? What the hell were these guys thinking, man? I'm sitting here with a wrench, because that's the only thing you can get in there, and once you get it loose enough to where you can maybe get it fingered loose, you can't get the wrench out because it's too high up to the subframe. I got the other side, but this side's being a pain in the ass. I just don't understand what the hell they were thinking with this. Getting that sway bar off was hell on earth, as I explained, with the stupid mounting system. So now we move on to getting the power steering pump out of the way. Gonna unbolt it, pull it off, hang it with a wire or something out of the way. Then we get the bracket there, and then motor mount, and we start to lift. The booklet is showing an earlier model, so it's a teeny bit different. I have to get this alternator off to get this bracket loose. Or I guess I don't have to. I could probably pull the alternator with the bracket, but I gotta do the alternator bushings anyway, so I'm just gonna pull this alternator off completely. All right. And you can see here, well, maybe not. These alternator bushings are shot, and these are super expensive new. Good thing the previous owner gave me a bunch. I'm gonna set that alternator off to the side there. Now we got all this room for activities with that bracket out. Now we got access to those bolts right there. It's literally like 3 bolts that it pretty much covers. And that was kind of a pain in the ass getting all that undone. But not too bad. Obviously, before I put everything back on together, I'm going to clean all that up, all the leaks and stuff. Get that sorted out. And actually, I forgot to drain the oil. So I got to go do that. I'll do that right now, I think. And then after I drain the oil, we'll undo this motor mount. Take out the air box. Alright, I just spent the last too long, it's actually a different day, getting the engine hooked up. I got the big boy engine hoist over here. Like I said, the motor mount trick didn't really work, so I'm just going to lift it with the engine hoist, safer anyway. I didn't like the way things were kind of looking, doing it the jack method. So, time for me to crank. I got both motor mounts undone. I'm going to go from the top and just kind of make sure I don't see anything getting stuck. Then you guys will see the progress before I do, see if we give ourselves enough clearance here. I don't know how high the M30 can go, but hopefully high enough to get that pan out. And she is off. I should have listened to the service manual from the start, because if you look here, we have the motor jacked up by the right motor mount arm. So I still have the hoist on it, but I found that the way I was lifting it, this motor mount bracket, or on the subframe, was hitting the pan and it was getting all caught up. So I brought this over here and jacked it up, and it actually worked flawlessly, and I had enough room to get the pan down around the pickup, so I don't have to undo the pickup or anything like that. Plenty of room. So there we are inside the bottom end here. The old gasket's still up there. I'm gonna have to pry that off. Oh look, it looks like it's gonna come off in one piece, which is nice. So that's nice. Oh yeah, easy. Alright, cool. So yeah, that was simple enough, although all those bolts were just a pain in the ass. I mean, they've never been opened up before. They were all super hard to do. You know, usually you crack those and they're basically finger tight. They were pretty much all, they needed a wrench the whole way, and you could see all the corrosion in the threads there. So that explains that. But unfortunately my gasket got delayed again. I just got a local place getting it because I don't want to wait from Connecticut for FCP. So tomorrow that'll be in, so I'm gonna let this chill overnight, and then we're gonna slap that new gasket in. We're ready to go. Got my oil pan gasket finally after getting delayed today. I got the pan cleaned up, so I took it outside. I degreased the whole inside of it. It was actually not too bad, but a little bit of sludge at the bottom there, as you'd expect for a super old car like this. Power washed the outside, ready to go. We're gonna slap this gasket on there, do the M539 zip tie trick, and then get that back up there and start tightening everything down. This is gonna be painful, but we're gonna do it. And I'm actually gonna clean all these bolts. I'm gonna take a wire wheel and tediously clean them all, because the threads are all old and corroded and they didn't come out very nice, so I want them to go in a little bit easier. We got the motor back down on its mounts, oil pan's all torqued up. I got the hoist out of here. She's back in place. So we are all done with the oil pan. And now I'm gonna pull off the oil filter housing. I got the gasket for this. I gotta put the new oil filter in too, because we're doing an oil change, obviously. So I just spent an absurd amount of time cleaning the old gasket off this oil filter housing. For some reason on these, well, not for some reason, but 40 years go by and these paper gaskets that fitted on the block get so many heat cycles that the gasket turns into a rock. And I mean, it does not come off. I just sit here with acetone, razor, wire wheel, I mean, everything. I mean, it really fought me, but I finally cleaned it up. So this is the top oil filter housing, then it obviously goes onto the bottom. So on FCP Euro, there's 2 gaskets available for this car. Both oil filter housing gaskets. You have one here with an oval kind of thing, and then you got this one with a circle. So I went ahead and bought both because I didn't know what it looked like, and good thing I bought both because it's actually the circle one right here. But it has this line across it, which in the pictures it didn't have, so I don't know if it's the wrong gasket or what. I'm going to send it anyway. I'm just going to cut it out because it is the same size. Why that would be there, not sure. I think some later models have the divided ports. This does not, but everything else is the same. So I'm just going to cut this out so it doesn't, get in my oil or anything. And then we're going to put this back on. I'm going to glob a little bit of RTV on there, both sides, and then I'm going to call it for the night. And we're back picking up, and I finally caved and bought a set of fan clutch tools. It's been about 6 years of BMW ownership, and I've managed to go this long without actually buying the proper set of tools. I always just did the adjustable wrench method with the hammer. This M30 is not allowing that to happen just because the water pump pulley bolts and the location of the nut, too skinny. So I had to cave and buy this. A local store actually had it, and it was 30 bucks. For some reason I thought these were really expensive. I don't know why. But anyway, we got this in order to further our gasket resealing of this M30. Up next is all this stuff. So that's a cam seal, and these are timing cover seals. I will admit right now, I believe we're gonna skip the timing cover seals. 1, I don't believe they leak. 2, I don't wanna do them because on this motor, the head gasket comes out to them, and what I hear a lot of horror stories, not really horror stories, but a lot of people rip their head gasket, not obviously the important part, but they rip the end, and I don't want any rips. You gotta seal stuff. It seems stressful to me for these crappy paper gaskets that, I doubt they're bad anyway. So we're gonna skip those, but we are gonna do this cam seal. And in order to do that, we're gonna, be popping off the distributor. So we're kind of gonna head that way, head around, then we'll do the valve cover. And I'll probably call it for this video because this is gonna be all the seals and stuff. So let's put our new fan clutch tool to use here, I guess, and get this fan clutch off. And I also have a new fan clutch for it. There we go. And there we are. That was a pain in the ass. I finally braced it against the main pulley and then used both my arms, and that worked. This clutch got a lot of resistance. I really don't even think it needed to be replaced, but I have a new one, so we'll do it anyway. Fan will be staying though. No reason to replace the blades. All right. That is is a nice and corroded cap right there. So you could see maybe kind of, where's my zoom? You can see the contact points all got a bit of corrosion on them. So that is no good. I'm actually kind of surprised this thing ran as good as it did, because that's not good at all. That's actually pretty bad. I've had a lot of M30s and I don't think I've ever seen them corroded like that. But it ran good. And I believe this should not look like that either, but I'll have to look at the new one to confirm. So anyway, this I'm just going to hang out of the way for a second here. We're going to take off the rotor here, which you can't really see. Then the dust boot, and then we should have access to the cam seal and see if that thing's leaking. So as you could guess, one of the Allens stripped on the cap, or on the rotor, which is typical. Ouch! Easy enough. So the rotor, same thing. Some decent corrosion on there. Looks like a little oil, so let's see. I had this all mixed up. That's a front crankshaft seal, not a cam seal. There is no cam seal. There's just a little seal that's behind this thing, which I don't have. Doesn't look like it's leaking anything serious up here. So I'm not going to be doing that. I'm going to return that kit. But while we got this off, I think I'm just going to go ahead and do the valve cover now. And then I'll put back on the new cap and new rotor and stuff. So that was a little bit of a waste of my time. But you live and you learn. So I really don't want to touch timing cover things. So we'll go on to the valve cover now. So basically I'm going to pull the plugs off. While this is all hanging out, I'm going to let it dangle. Brackets, boot, which I'm replacing. Look how clean this is. This is definitely 90K right here. This thing is beautiful. But check this out. Banjo bolts loose that holds the oil squirter. That's a huge thing on M30s. You must check these. Always do it when you do a valve cover gasket. This one is finger tight. I can literally loosen it by hand. This one is good. So I'm going to pull it out, Loctite it, and reinstall. Thank God I caught that. That would have been horrendous if that went bad. So a little bit of Loctite should do the trick on these. And then clean up the mating surface. Pull off the old gasket. And I'm going to degrease this top. This should clean up really nicely, as you can see right there. I put some brake cleaner on it and it looks good. So this should clean up nice. I don't have to respray it or anything like the E12. But otherwise, looking really good in here. I don't have to do a valve adjustment because, as the records show, the valve adjustment, while it was done years ago, the car has hardly seen any miles since, and the valves aren't going to go out of spec just sitting. So I'm not going to bother. It's going to take a lot of time. The motor sounds beautiful, so I'm not going to waste my time doing that. While we're in the area, I'm going to go ahead and do the oil pressure valve, or the oil pressure sensor, I should say. So even if you aren't having issues with your check control, I still always replace these. It's cheap enough. And then even if the sensor is good, they usually leak. So you can see here, this is a flat copper washer. The new one from BMW has a rounded one. Seals better. This one was leaking, so figured why not just go ahead and replace it. So that concludes all the seals and stuff. Basically, in the next video, I'm going to pick up right where we left off. I'm only doing that because I want to not make this video too long, and then we got plenty of other stuff to do, and a lot of that stuff is going to come from putting all this back together. So we're just going to do it all at once in the next video. So thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned for the next one. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you guys in the next one.